Hey devs, welcome to the third part of a plasma games series. So in this part, we'll be working on our enemy. So we'll be adding in our enemy, adding in the animations for enemy, adding in some events to make our enemy move. Okay, so let's open GDevelop. Okay, so this is GDevelop. Let's go to the start page. Okay, so for those of you who are new to GDevelop is an easy-to-use game creator with no programming language to learn, and for those of you who are just joining this series, I'd advise you check out the previous parts of the series. A link would be in the description below. Okay, so let's open our new scene right here. So this is exactly where we stopped in the last part of the series. So let's preview this. Okay, so here we go. In the last part we added this smooth camera, and we also added the background right there, which is a parallax background. Okay, so let's close this and let's begin. Okay, so before we add in our enemies, let's make a few changes to the game. Okay, so first of all, we'll make our scene background color the same color with our background object right here. Also, let's go to our events and let's toggle disable our parallax. Okay, so you can do that by creating an empty event. Like I said in the previous part, you can create an empty event by clicking on this, add new event, or clicking on this right here, add a new empty event, and this creates an empty event. So now to toggle this event, to disable this event, we need to select our parallax actions right here and pull it into the event, right click and toggle disable. So this is now disabled. Now let's go to our new scene. Also, now let's set the background color to the same color of our background object. To do that, we need to get our background color. We need to get the color of our background object. So let's open this and edit. So we'll be using the inbuilt editor which comes with GDevelop, which is a Pisco editor. Okay, so here we go. Now to select the color, you can hit O on your keyboard. Sorry about that, O, which is a shortcut for the color picker tool. So you can select that and click on it. So now we have the color. Okay, so let's select that and hit Control Copy on our keyboard. And now we don't need to save this, so cancel and cancel. Okay, so now to set your background color, all you have to do is right click, Scene Properties, click on this color right here and paste that right here. Okay, so paste that and there we go, apply. So we have this now, so we don't need our that layer anymore. So next, let's move every object we have in our parallax to our base layer. So to do that, you delete your foreground layer and move the objects to your base layer. So delete the middle layer. As you can see, move objects on the layer middle to our base layer. So once this is deleted, it moves every single object on our middle layer to the base layer. So move objects, there we go. Once again, background and move objects. Okay, so now we have this. Okay, so here now we have our background objects above every single above our foreground and middle layer. To fix that, we have to use our Z order. You can find the Z order right here. Before the background layer, we don't need this anymore since we have since our scene background is the same color with it, so we can delete this from the editor. Okay, so now let's position this. As you can see, our middle layer is supposed to be behind our foreground layer. To fix that, you have to use your Z order right here, select it, and so let's set the Z order. As you can see, the Z order of our middle layer is set to 20, so that's why it's above our foreground layer. Let's pull this up so we can select our foreground layer. Select your foreground layer. As you can see, the Z order of our foreground layer is set to 19, and that's why our middle layer is above our foreground layer. So we need to set this to value higher than the Z order of our middle layer. So let's take this. As you can see, now it's above our middle layer. So we can position this, and there we go. Perfect. Okay. Okay, so now let's add some objects into the scene. There we go. Right here, so let's add a new object. Let's add a sprite and add an animation. Add. There we go. We'll be using this right here. Here we go. The fog yellow. Select that. And okay. So let's select this. Let's name this tiles. Name this tiles, and okay, apply this. Now let's position this here and pull this out. Okay, so once again, so now we're actually building the scene, so we'll build in the stage. As you can see, once again, this is above this object. We need it below it or behind it. So to do that, you have set your Z order to value lower than the Z order of this value. As you can see, the Z order of this object is set to 28, and the Z order of a floor lower is set to 29. So we need to fix this and set this to a higher value. Sorry about that. There we go. So we have this now. Okay, so let's get to our files. Add an animation. Add. Here we go. Okay, and apply. Put this into the scene. Now as you can see right here, we have our animation 1. Oh sorry, animation 0. Now we need to use our animation 1. To do that, you can use your animation right here in the properties. Animations, you can set this animation 1. As you can see, using the animation 1 of our tiles objects. Okay, so there we go. Let's pull in our floor. There we go. Okay, once again, let's place our tiles right here and our floor lower. There we go. Again, we need to fix it. We need to fix the Z order, so settings to value. There we go. Okay, so tiles. Let's pull our tiles into the scene. Select this and animation 1. Okay, there we go. Floor. Okay. So now we have this. Once again, tiles and pull this. Okay. Also, files, animation 1, floor. Here we go. Okay. So now we have this one more floor lower. And here we go. So now we can add the floor lower right here. There we go. Okay, so now let's add in our enemies. First of all, we'll start with our first, sorry about that. We'll start with our first enemy, so let's add new objects. Let's add our sprites. And I'll name this enemy _1. Now you cannot name an object with a space. You have to use this. Okay, let's see. You have to use an underscore to name it. If you give a space between values and you get this error, the name is invalid. Only use alphanumeric characters 0 to 9, A to Z, and underscores. Digits are not allowed as the first characters. Okay, so there we go. So we have to give this a name with an underscore. So enemy _1. This will be our first enemy. So add an animation. Okay, so here our enemy would have an animation. This would be the walk animation of our enemy. So let's get the walk animation files, and sorry about that. Here we go, enemies. Okay, so let's work with this player enemy first. Okay, so we can select multiple animation by clicking on the first animation, hold down shift and hit the last animation, and okay. And okay, so this will place them in frames. So this is frame 0, frame 1, and frame 2. So add an animation. Let's add the death animation of our enemy. So add, and here we go, enemy walking. Okay, apply. Let's put this into the scene. There we go. I think I'll position this right here. This would do. Okay, something's not right. Our player is missing a let's find our player. So we can get objects in the scene using your instance manager. Right here, open the list of instances, and you can search for, we can get our player. So we'll go player. So this is exactly where our player is, and you can see right here our player Z order is set to 1. This is the lowest set order. That's why it's below behind every single object in the scene. So let's increase the Z order of our player. Okay, so there we go. Now I think 30 would do. So there we go, we have this as the Z order of our player. Okay, let's close our instance list. Okay, so now we need to give our enemy object a platform character behavior. So let's select this, and behaviors, add a behavior, and platformer character, select this. Okay, uncheck default controls. By default, like I said in the first part, default controls consist of the arrow keys and the shift key. The shift is the jump, while the arrow keys are the movements for your player. So we don't want the arrow keys to control our enemies, so uncheck that, and there we go. Apply this, and let's preview this. Wait, before we preview this, let's give our tiles objects a platform behavior, because we just added our tiles object and we need our player to work on our tiles objects. So behaviors, and add a behavior. So platform, the platform characters can run on. Select that, apply, and that's it. So preview this. So here we go. As you can see, our player falls, or our enemy falls down, because he has the platformer character behaviors. Let's go back to events. Now let's make the animations work. So let's go to our objects right here, select the enemy one, behaviors, properties, and this. Now we need this to loop. Luckily you can find the loop button here. By clicking on this, it would loop the animations, the frames in this animation. And let's preview this. So as you can see, it loops it. Now this is super fast. Okay, so here we go. The higher the frames per second, the faster it is, and the lower, the slower it is. Okay, so here we go. I think 4 would do. Okay, so let's go with value of 3.5. Okay, that's okay. And apply. Preview this. Okay, so here we go. Now this loops the animation of our enemy. As you can see, animation 1, frame 0, frame 1, and frame 2. So it's looping the frames of the animation 1. Okay, so let's go to our enemy 1 events. Close this, and let's go to our new scene events. Okay, so now we can add in our enemy events in this new scene events. But now there's a problem with this system. If you add in your enemies events in this exact scene, now once you create a second stage, you'd have to reduplicate the whole enemy scene, and that's a lot of work. Now luckily we have the external events. Now this, with the external events, you can create an event and link it to multiple scenes, so you don't have to duplicate your events over and over again. So you create one external event and link it to every scene which need that event. So let's select this, and let's rename this enemy. Okay, so this will consist of multiple enemies, so enemies would do. And let's open this. Here we go. So to edit the external events, choose a scene in which it would be included. So don't get this wrong. This does not mean the only scene it would work in. This is actually the scene which it takes as its own. It's like it would be included in that scene, but you can also link it to that scene. So once you choose the scene, this does not mean it's automatically linked to that scene. You still have to use the link to link it to that scene. So I'll show you how to link it. So choose this. Okay, so now let's go to our new scene events. Now to link this, you can click on this right here. Let's close this, and let's create a new group. I'm just creating a group so our work is organized. Sorry, our group is in here. Pull this out. Okay, so name this group enemy. Okay, enemies, sorry, enemies, and add a new event. Let's pull this in. Here we go. So enemies, and sorry, delete the new on this the new events, and let's add the link. So you can do that by clicking on this right here, the plus sign, add an event, and there we go, link. So now let's pull this into the scene. As you can see, we linked this to the scene, but it does not link. Or we chose the scene, the new scene, but it does not link to this scene. You have to do you have to link it with the link event. So here we go, choose the external events. There we go. So choose our enemies external event. Okay, so now it would include every event we have in our enemies external events in this scene. So let's go to our enemies event. Now okay, before we begin, let's create a group for our enemies, because we won't have only one enemy, we need to have multiple groups. So let's add a group right here, and enemies, so we have the group right here. You can create a group by clicking on the add new group, and rename the group by clicking on this 3 signs right here and rename. So open this and choose objects. There we go, enemy 1. So we've added our enemy 1 to this group. Once we have multiple other enemies, we can add the enemies to this group right here. Okay, so next up, let's add some objects. Before we go to our event, sorry about this, let's add some objects, which would be the right and left. This would help our enemy know when to move right and when to move left. So add new objects and sprite. So name this object, here we go, left, add an animation and add, here we go, okay, I think we have some right here, items, it should be here, no, sorry, not here, other, should be here. Okay, so here we go, we have the rotate left and the rotate right. So select the right, sorry, okay, sorry, let's rename this object to right. So we have this as our right, apply this and add new objects, sprite, add an animation. So name this left, add an animation and add. So this would be for our left, and here we go, so rotate left. There we go. Okay, apply. Now let's put this into the scene. So we can position this right here and place this right here. Here we go. So let's go to our new scene. Let's go to our events now. Add an empty event, and okay. So let's add a condition. Okay, so a condition would work with our group. So enemies is in collision with the objects. Let's work with our rights first. With the object's rights. Okay. Now add an empty event and add a condition. So enemies is in collision with the objects left. Okay. So once enemies is in collision with right, add an action, and let's get the enemies variable. We need to use an object variable. So there we go. Modify the variable of an object. Select this and variable, or name this walk. Okay, walk with do. Now sign set to value 1. Okay, so once the enemy is in collision with right, change the walk of enemies set to 1. And once enemies is in collision with left, add a condition, enemies and variable. Modify the variable walk. Sorry about that. Walk sign set to value 0. Okay, so now let's add an empty event, and let's add a condition for enemies. So enemies and the animation. Now we're placing all animation of our enemies, the walk animation of our enemies in animation 0. So now that's why we need to use this exact condition right here. So the current animation of enemies sign set to value 0. So 0 is the walk animation of our enemy. So add a sub condition. You can do that by clicking on this right here, add a sub event, and you can also add a sub event by creating an external event, by creating an event and pulling it in. There it goes. Now it becomes a sub event. Okay, so now let's go to our condition right here, add a condition. Let's select our enemies and let's get the variable, which is the value of the object's variable. Select this variable, the walk variable sign set to value 1. So just like we have here, once enemies in collision with rights, set the walk for enemies to 1. So we need this the variable to make our player move to the right. So to do that, add an action. This is why we add this a platform character behavior for our enemies. So enemies, and here we go, simulate right key press. Okay, there we go. So the variable walk of enemies is set to 1, simulates right key press for enemies. Now add a condition once this here we go, enemies variable, value of the object's variable, once it's the variable walk is set to value 0, this would make it go to the left. So add an action, sorry, once again enemies, and simulates the left key press. There we go. So let's preview this. Okay, so here we go. So about that. So now we have our enemy moving from right to left. There we go. Okay, so now let's flip our enemy horizontally once it's in collision with this. So close this, and in our enemy events, now the variable walk of enemies is set to 1, simulates right key press for enemies. Also, since our player faces the right, we don't want to flip our player again. Oh, sorry, since our enemy, this is the right by default, our enemy's sprite faces the right, we don't want to flip it again. So let's add an action and select enemies and flip horizontally. No. Okay, so for the once it's set to 0, which is once the enemy is in collision with the left, add an action, enemies, and flip horizontally. Yes. Okay, so there we go. You've seen, preview this. Here we go. Okay, now it flips to the right and flips to the left. So we have this. Good looking animation. Okay, so let's add in the fly. Okay, which would be our second enemy. So add new object, add a sprite. Object and object's name, enemy _2. Add an animation, add. Okay, so let's go to our enemy to here we go, enemies, and okay, here we have the fly 1, 2, and 3. Let's hit that, open. Okay, let's preview this. Sorry, let's check the loop and preview this. Okay, so we have this, it's super fast. Okay, this would do. Okay, 6 would do as a frames per second. Okay, now let's add an animation, add, which would be the death animation of our enemy flying. Add this, and okay, apply. Now let's pull our enemy into the scene. Here we go. Okay, let's get our left and right. Once again, let's give our enemy to a platform character behavior, add behavior, and platform character, and uncheck default controls. Okay, by default, we preview this, our fly would fall to the ground. Now we need to disable this in the events. Okay, we'll do that real quick. Before that, let's add our enemy to the group. So enemies, and let's open the group and enemies, add in enemy 2. There we go. Apply. Okay, so now let's go to our enemies events. Okay, so let's add an empty event right here, and pick that up, add a condition, at the beginning of the scenes like that, and add an action. So for the action, let's get the enemy 2 and behavior. So let's deactivate the platform character behavior. Okay, so once it's set to no, it's deactivated. Okay, so now the variable walk of enemies is set to 1. Add an action right here, and let's use a force for enemy 2. So force, add a force to move. Let's add a force. Here we go. Add a force on the x-axis. Let's make it move 300 on the x-axis, and on the y-axis 0. Let's set an instance force. Okay, so there we go. This would move our enemy to 300, which is to the right, and let's copy this, copy and paste this right here, enemy 2. Let's add a minus, which would move it. Sorry about that. Minus 300. Okay, so this would move it backwards now. So let's preview this. Okay, so here we go, we have our fly moving to the right and to the left. There we go, that's good. Okay, so let's add in our next enemy. New scene, add a new object and sprite and object, enemy, underscore 3, add an animation, add. Okay, so this would be, which should be our enemy 3. Okay, let's go with this, spiky would be our enemy 3, so 1 and, okay, 1, 2, and 3. Open. There we go. Okay, so let's preview this. Okay, let's loop and preview. Okay, so now as you can see we have our points right here. Now you can change the point of this object by clicking on your edit points and taking it to the bottom right here. So let's pull this down. Okay, so since we have this animation, the frame with frame 2 as the highest or the longest frame, you can pull this to the bottom of it. So here we go, that's a good position. Close and preview. Okay, so we have this now. Okay, so let's switch this right here. Now add an animation and let's add. There we go, let's add that animation right here. Okay, so here we go, we have our enemy 3, apply. Let's pull our enemy 3 into the scene. Sorry, we need to add it to the enemies group. Add, and there we go, enemies 3, enemy 3, sorry, apply, and this is the scene. Let's position this right here and here. This should do. Now let's give this the behavior, which is the platform character behavior, so it falls down. So behavior, add a behavior, and platform character. Uncheck default controls and apply, preview. Okay, so there we go, we have this moving. Sorry about the frames, super high, so let's reduce that. There we go. Okay, so let's select our enemy 3 and preview. Okay, so let's reduce the frames per second for would do. Okay, and apply. Okay, so let's preview this once more. There we go, we have this, and okay, we have all these enemies. They're moving, but they are not actually, they don't have here go right and go left. So let's add some for them. Let's add a go left right here and add a go right. So let's make sure this move this down. Okay, so they are in collision with it, else if they're not in collision with the go right and go left, they would move all the way to this position. So preview this. Okay, so about that. Here we go. Okay, so we have this enemies moving, which is good. Okay, but if you don't want this enemies moving, you can choose to take them out of the enemies group, and once you take them out, they would not move, so you can attach them to the floor with and leave them at a permanent spot. Okay, so let's add new objects. Let's add a sprite and add an animation. This would be our enemy underscore 4. Add an animation. Let's add. Here we go. So we have this as our enemy 4. Okay, so we have the enemy floating on select 1, 2, and 3. Open. Okay, let's preview this. Okay, we have to loop and preview. Okay, now we have this. So once again, let's change the points of our enemy fold. So edit points, and let's center this right here. Close that. Now add an animation. Let's add the that animation. Add, and here we go. Okay, apply. So we have this, and let's pull our enemy 4 into the scene. Okay, so we have our enemy 4 placed here, and let's loop, preview. This is super fast, so we need to reduce the frames per second. Here we go. Okay, this would do. Okay, and apply. let's preview this. Okay, we have this enemies, and we have this right here. We have this enemy right here. Okay. Okay, so that's for this part of the series. We've added in our enemies, given it some animation. Okay, so see you guys in the next part. Thanks for watching.